The rain that night came down hard on the Landungsbrücken, hammering the metal roofs of the ferry terminals and washing the neon reflections from the Reeperbahn across the slick surface of the Elbe. Lukas Brandt pulled his hood tighter, breath fogging the air. His eyes flicked to his watch. 21:17. The ferry from Finkenwerder should have docked 15 minutes ago. Maren, his younger sister, had promised she'd be on it. She had texted him at 19:45, a quick message. "On my way. Something feels off. Will explain." That was the last he had heard. He paced along the pier, trying not to imagine the worst. Maren was never careless. As a journalist, she often pushed boundaries, but she never broke her word with him. The ferry finally arrived, engines rumbling, lights cutting through the drizzle. A crowd of passengers shuffled off, shoulders hunched, umbrellas popping open. Lukas scanned every face. Students with headphones, tired men in business suits, couples bickering. No Maren. His chest tightened. He pushed against the tide of commuters and stopped a young ferry worker. "My sister, dark hair, green coat. Did you see her on board?" The boy shook his head, glancing away nervously. "Sorry, can't say." Another deckhand walked past. Lukas called out again, more urgently. This man, older, paused for a moment, his eyes flicking sideways before he muttered, "Don't know." Then he walked on quickly, as though afraid to linger. Lukas pulled out his phone, tried calling Maren. Straight to voicemail. He called again, same result. The rain was soaking through his jeans by now, the chill creeping into his bones. He forced himself to think rationally. Maybe she had missed the boat. Maybe she had gone straight home. But then his eye caught something beneath one of the benches by the terminal, a small spiral notebook, half hidden in the shadows, pages sodden from the rain. He crouched down, tugged it free. Even before he opened it, he recognized the messy, hurried handwriting. Maren's. He shielded the pages from the rain as best he could. Most were water-damaged, ink-smudged, but the last few lines stood out, written with heavy pressure. "Following man in grey coat. Ferry tickets don't match. He noticed me." Lukas's stomach turned. His sister hadn't simply disappeared. She had been following someone, and something had gone wrong. He sat there for a long moment, shivering, staring at the page while the ferry pulled away again into the Black River. His instincts screamed that the police should be called, but he already knew how it would go. A grown woman missing for only a few hours, in a city of millions? They'd tell him to wait, to give it time. He shoved the notebook into his pocket and headed toward the U-Bahn station. He needed answers, and waiting wasn't an option. The tunnels smelled of damp concrete and hot brakes. He boarded a near-empty carriage bound for St. Pauli, his reflection wavering in the dark glass. He thought of Maren's last smile that morning when they had met for coffee, her teasing him about working too much. He gripped the notebook tighter. The words echoed in his mind. He noticed me. Who was the man in the grey coat? And had she found something dangerous enough to silence her? The train rattled into the night, carrying Lukas deeper into a mystery he wasn't ready for, but one he couldn't turn away from. By morning the rain had turned to a fine mist that clung to the facades along Simon von Utrechtstrasse. Lukas let himself into Maren's flat with her spare key, wiping his shoes on the mat out of habit, then froze. The living room looked as if a wave had rolled through it. Couch cushions slashed open, books yanked from shelves, a plant tipped and bleeding soil across the parquet. Maren hated mess. This was deliberate. He set his phone to record and moved slowly. Drawers dumped. Wardrobe doors yawning. In the kitchen, cabinets stood open like mouths. Her laptop was gone. The router light blinked. Working. Whoever did this hadn't cut the internet. They'd just taken what they wanted. On the desk, beneath a scatter of envelopes, lay Maren's press badge, the plastic split with a clean crack through her surname. The sight hit Lukas harder than the wreckage. She never went anywhere without it. He crouched by the desk. A corner of masking tape protruded from the underside. He peeled it away, heart ticking faster, and freed a tiny micro-SD card, the kind she used in field recorders. He slipped it into his wallet just as the stairwell outside creaked. The flat fell into a held breath. A footstep stopped at their door. The handle twitched once, twice, like someone testing the lock. Lukas thumbed off the hall light, held still until his calves ached. The step retreated. A minute later, a door below clicked shut. He exhaled and went to the window. Across the street, a white panel van waited with its engine idling. No logos. Condensation filmed the inside windows. After 30 seconds, it pulled away, indicator blinking right toward Reeperbahn. He phoned 110, reported a probable break-in. The dispatcher was polite, professional, and non-committal. "An officer will come by. Please don't touch anything," he promised and hung up, palms damp. He'd already touched plenty. Frau Kruger from next door poked her head in as he waited. Retired, apron still on. She had known them since they were kids. "Lukas? Oh God. What is all this? Did you hear anything last night?" She squinted. Men's voices. Late. Midnight. Boots on the stairs. Foreign, maybe Polish or Russian. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't guess." They said. "Spedition? Like a shipping company." Shipping. Maren's scribbles about cargo flashed in his head. He thanked the neighbor and, when the uniformed officers finally came and took perfunctory notes, he gave them the basics and kept the SD card to himself. Not noble, just a gut calculation. If someone in a uniform was part of the reason the ferry crew had been evasive, handing over Maren's last breadcrumbs felt like tossing them down a drain. Back at his place, he borrowed a USB reader from an old camera and slid the micros in. The folder structure was erratic, typical Maren. He opened a sequence of photos. Terminal shots. Ferry schedules. A close-up of a ticket reader's serial number. Then portraits from a distance, all grain and rain. The man in the grey coat, collar up, hair clipped short, face neither handsome nor ugly but arranged in a way the eye returned to. In one frame he was standing at Bridge 3, fingers on a phone. In another he leaned against a rust-red railing, looking past the camera. Looking, it felt, at her. A short audio file, wind, footsteps, then Maren whispering, "He's not scanning." Crew waved him on. Same coat at Hafen City last week. Warehouse with green door. Number looks like 28 or 82. Paint is peeling. A clank drowned her. "He's seen me." Ending for now. Lukas rewound the clip 3 times to confirm the number. 28 or 82. In Speicherstadt, house numbers were large white numerals stenciled on red brick giants. He Googled maps, cross-referenced photos in her cache. One image caught a sliver of a sign near a footbridge, Sand Torquay. Another showed a downspout with ornate ironwork he recognized from childhood field trips. He triangulated the details until 2 candidates emerged, blocks with 28 and 82, both reachable from Magdeburger Brück within minutes. He didn't call the police again. He layered up, shoved the iron taste of fear down, and took the U3 to Baumwall. Mist drifted between warehouses like steam off a reservoir. Cyclists rattled past on cobbles, lights blinking. The smell of coffee from a roastery cut through diesel and river. At Block 28, a sliding gate stood half open, a forklift humming inside. Men in high-vis vests shuffled boxes stamped with brand names Lukas recognized. Too legitimate. He kept walking, boots splashing. 3 blocks later he found 82. The door was green once, now scabbed with chipped paint, the number repainted thickly over older digits. No lights. No noise. He waited in the lee of a canal bridge until his breath stopped fogging. At 17:30 he saw him. Grey coat, cigarette cupped against the wind, emerging from a side alley and pausing by the green door like a man checking his own pulse. He looked older up close, late 40s, maybe 50, but moved like someone who measured rooms and exits without effort. Lukas angled his head, pretending to text. Grey coat glanced across the canal, eyes passes over him, then away. A key clinked. The door opened. The man slipped inside. Lukas felt the hinge settle shut like a verdict. He didn't believe in omens, but the warehouse windows looked blind. He checked the time, 17:32, touched the SD card in his pocket as if it were a talisman, and went to the door. He pulled it before it latched. The gap gave. A breath of cold air slid out, smelling of oil, rope, and something chemical. He stepped through, letting the city narrow behind him until all that remained was brick, shadow, and his sister's voice in his head. The door closed behind him with a metallic sigh. Lukas froze, ears straining. The cavernous interior swallowed sound differently than the city outside. Every drip, every scuff echoed back like a warning. Sodium lamps high on the rafters flickered in sickly amber, painting everything in dull orange and black. He stood between rows of towering shipping containers stacked 2, 3 high. Their metal skins sweated condensation, stamped with shipping codes and logos in multiple alphabets. The smell was layered: diesel, rope, river damp, and underneath, something sharper, chemical, like solvent or bleach. He crouched low and moved forward, boots silent on the concrete. Each step drew him deeper into the belly of the warehouse, until the street noise had disappeared entirely. His pulse thudded in his ears. A voice carried from somewhere ahead. German, rough, impatient. "Nicht so laut. We're on a schedule." Another answered in Russian. Lukas's heart knocked. Frau Kruger had been right. He inched toward the sound, ducking behind a rust-red container. Through the narrow gap, he caught sight of them. 2 men standing by a folding table under a dangling bulb. One was heavy-set, shaved head, tattoos crawling up his neck. The other, grey coat. He was speaking low, gesturing toward a clipboard. Then Lukas heard it, Maren's voice. Muffled, angry, but unmistakable. "You can't hide this forever. Someone will notice." He nearly stumbled into the open. She was alive. He pressed against the container wall, forcing himself to breathe slowly. Another angle gave him a view. Maren sat on a metal chair, wrists bound with plastic ties. Her green coat was torn at the shoulder. A bruise shadowed her cheek, but her eyes burned defiance. Lukas's throat tightened. He gripped the rusted iron pipe he'd pocketed near the door, feeling its weight, rehearsing in his head what he would do if anyone touched her again. The heavy-set man slammed the table with his palm. "Enough. You're done talking. Tonight we move everything out, and by the time police sniff around, it'll be on a ship to Riga." Grey coat remained silent, just watching Maren, expression unreadable. He finally said, almost calmly, "She's a problem." Maren spat blood on the floor. "You're all problems." The heavy-set man grabbed her chin, forcing her face up. "Careful, Girl. Brave doesn't mean bulletproof. Lucas's vision swam red. He shifted his weight to step forward, but a third man suddenly entered from a side door, lugging a box. His boots scraped loudly on the concrete. Lucas pressed flat against the metal container, heart hammering. The newcomer muttered in Russian about the docks being clear, patrols distracted. The heavy-set man nodded. Good. 2 more loads, then we're done. Grey coat lit a cigarette. The smoke curled upward, blending with the lamplight. He glanced toward the shadows where Lucas crouched, and for a split second Lucas was certain their eyes met. Grey coat exhaled slowly, turned back to the group, and said nothing. The men busied themselves moving crates toward the far loading bay, leaving Maren momentarily alone with the guard near the door. Lucas tested his phone. No signal inside, thick walls blocking everything. No chance of calling for help. He checked the exits. The bay doors were chained. The side door was manned. His only option was the one he had come through. Maren shifted in her chair, testing her bindings. Her gaze flicked across the room, and for a heartbeat their eyes locked. Her lips parted in shock, then quickly pressed shut, as if she understood that one sound could ruin everything. Lucas gave the smallest nod he could manage. The pipes overhead creaked with the wind. A forklift beeped somewhere in the depths of the warehouse. The heavy-set man shouted for another crate. Lucas's hands were slick with sweat. He tightened his grip on the pipe, feeling his choices shrink down to one brutal, dangerous path. If he waited, they would move her, and he might never see her again. If he acted, he might get them both killed. He wiped his palm on his jeans, crouched lower, and prepared to gamble everything on the next few minutes. Lucas moved when the heavy-set man strode toward the loading bay. He came up behind the door guard, the pipe low and tight the way his old judo instructor had taught him. Close the distance, don't wind up. The crack of metal on bone was small, a swallowed sound. The guard folded. Maren's eyes flared. Lucas was already at her wrists, sawing the plastic ties against the sharp corner of a crate. "Quiet," he breathed. "Idiot," she breathed back, but her fingers were steady, already rubbing life into her hands. A cigarette ember floated in the dark like a tiny planet. Grey coat stepped from the shadow, not shouting, not reaching for a weapon. Up close, Lucas saw his eyes. Tired, watchful, not surprised. "You shouldn't be here," he said, the same tone someone uses to note rain on a forecast. "Then help us leave," Maren said, standing, chin up. For a second Lucas thought the man would raise the alarm. Instead Grey coat looked over his shoulder toward the bay, then back and flicked his cigarette to the floor. "Left," he said. "Service corridor. Green door. If you meet anyone, you never saw me. You never saw this place." He hesitated, just long enough to feel like a choice, and slid a small fob across the concrete with the toe of his shoe. Gate release. Footsteps neared. The heavy-set man's voice rolled closer. Grey coat didn't move. Lucas grabbed Maren's hand, pocketed the fob, and pulled her into the corridor. It smelled of oil and damp plaster. They ran bent, passing coils of rope and a blue pallet jack, until the corridor kinked and ended at a metal door painted the same flayed green as outside. A chain was looped through the latch. Lucas pressed the fob. Somewhere in the wall a relay snapped, and the chain slithered loose like a shed snakeskin. They slipped into a wind that slapped their faces clean of warehouse air. A canal opened at their feet, black and slick as ink. The Speicherstadt's brick towers loomed like patient teeth. Behind them, voices erupted, shouts, a barked order, boots on concrete. Lucas pulled Maren across a narrow iron footbridge, the metal clanging under their weight, then down a flight of wet steps to a lower quay where weeds grew between stones. A forklift engine coughed to life inside. Somewhere, a siren wailed and Doppled away, indifferent. "Phone?" Lukas asked. "Dead," she said. "Yours?" "No signal." He pointed toward the glow of Magdeburger Brück. "Up there. Taxis." They climbed. Twice Lukas glanced back and saw nothing but their own fear reflected in dark windows. At the roadway they blended into evening traffic, cyclists hunched against wind, a couple arguing under an umbrella, a delivery scooter whining past. They walked fast without running. Only when they were on the U3 platform at Baumwall, swallowed by the electrical smell of the rails, did Lukas risk looking at Maren properly. She had a small cut in her eyebrow and grit on her cheek. Her mouth was set, but dry humor flickered there, the old Maren. "Don't say it," he told her. "You're an idiot," she said. "Thank you." The train arrived and carried them away in a tunnel of light. Neither spoke until St. Pauli. In Lukas's kitchen, hands shaking, they poured water and listened to the apartment breathe. Maren emptied her coat pockets. A folded timetable, a ferry pass, a scribbled list of names, half legible after the rain. Lukas placed the micro-SD on the table like a reliquary. "We give this to the police?" he asked. "We give them enough," she said slowly, "to force a raid without killing my source." "Your source?" Maren's eyes slid to the window, to the city beyond. "The man in the coat tipped me to Hanseatic Logistics weeks ago. He's deep. Or he's dirty. Maybe both. Tonight he saved us. Or he saved himself." At dawn, the police did raid a cluster of Speicherstadt blocks after an anonymous call reported suspicious loading overnight. By the time blue lights flooded the canals, the containers were gone. A customs officer told reporters they were following several promising leads. No arrests were announced. Maren's article ran a week later. Shipping routes, shell companies, a pattern of late-night transfers toward the Baltic. She kept names out. Within hours she received a message from an unknown number. A photo of a ferry ticket stamped the night she vanished. No words. A second message followed. "Not yet. Keep breathing." Lukas read it twice and felt, absurdly, both fury and relief. Some evenings, crossing Landungsbrücken after work, he caught himself scanning faces. Once, he thought he saw grey coat on a far platform, unremarkable among commuters, a man built to be forgotten. The train came. When it left, the space where he'd been was empty. Was grey coat police, criminal, or something wired between? Lukas couldn't say. All he knew was that a hand had nudged them toward a door when every other exit pointed to water. In a city of tides, debts had their own currents. And somewhere in Hamburg's brick maze, the game kept moving, quiet as rain on the river, loud as a pipe on bone, waiting for the next person who noticed too much.